I'll be talking about the role of educators in building meaningful connections, and that includes families, your coworkers, which includes your admin, and the families and the children themselves. A little bit about myself. I have a master's in early childhood education from Cal State Long Beach. I got my bachelor's from Northridge, and I attended every school under the district of LACCD to be able to get my AA and be able to transfer. So I've been doing the education part for a while. My professional, I've been at my center for 17 years now. It's a great center, like to the point that we have parents that were actually students here. So the community is very united and they stay together. I've been in a classroom setting as a preschool teacher. I started at my center as an aide, then I became a substitute teacher. So I've been in almost every role within my center. I have a class of 2.5-year-olds. And I work basically in a play-based learning environment, supporting children through their development, encouraging them having play-based activities within the Jewish values. So we are a Jewish center. Therefore, I have to weave in the community within my lesson plans, and my lessons plans have to include kindness and respect. And these things have to be incubated within the play activities. So we really work on a lot of like foundations and emotions and social and just growth within being part of a group by fostering strong participation within the families and creating an environment where families feel seen and heard and like they can be part of the group. So I aim to help the children feel seen, valued, and just have confidence within their academic journey. I don't really focus in academics. I focus more in the well-being of the children and how they participate within the group. Um, and we work on a lot of like sharing and a lot of the children advocating for themselves within their sharing activities and problem solving. I don't just want the kids to give away the toy to their friend just because they joined the activity. I want the child to be able to advocate for themselves and be able to say, my toy is not available right now. You need to wait for this toy. And just for them to be able to speak up and tell us, you need to wait, and that's okay. And therefore, it's double because also the other child is learning patience. They're learning that not everything is given to them right away. And ultimately, what I'm aiming for is for them to have autonomy and be able to advocate for themselves and be able to problem solve and participate in the activities without having an adult be the main focus of the activity, for them to actually be playing and be part of the activity. For parents to also be a part of the classroom, that takes some time and that takes a lot of effort from the admin and the teacher to work hand in hand to have this environment become welcoming. Um, so educators and building meaningful connections. My center is very cultural driven. Therefore, everything has to be like today we have Shabbat in the morning where it was the whole school being together and singing together and sharing bread and coming together. And some parents are welcome to stay. And then there's days that it's just for the parents to come and for all the families to come together and be a part of it. So we really want to be a part of respect. Educators must understand and respect diverse backgrounds for children and their families. And there goes the teacher being open-minded and being willing to learn. For example, I'm not Jewish, but from the gate in, I am. Therefore, I had to take the time to learn the traditions and learn the songs and how to be able to incorporate families into my classroom. Um, and therefore, it takes trust. It really does take the teachers being able to communicate with the parents and ask them, what do you, where are you at? Sometimes families are different. Different personalities need different things. Some people are more extroverts, some people are more introverts. So it does take some time. Um, we're lucky that we have like a mommy and me where admin really get to know the families and the families are able to come into the center before they actually enroll into the school. It's not just a tour. They actually get to be a part of the center and see how things are. Um, but I know there's other centers where they just enroll their children because it's the nearest thing or it's what's available. How can educators build trust with children and families? I always think of like a bank. You always want to have money deposited and have within the trust. So whenever you need to take out, the parents know what you're talking about and what you need. Some people like to do like the sandwich effect, where they begin the conversation with a positive, and then they talk about the issue, and then in the bottom they give a compliment or they come back to that. I don't really believe in that. I believe in more starting with like what's the positive, then what we're working on, and therefore integrating what the issue is, and then concluding with what we're going to continue to work as together, and have the families also share what they do at home and what works for them, and therefore also adding what works for us in the center, and try to incorporate both, because there's always a cause and effect to what children are doing. And sometimes parents just see the child being frustrated and throwing something on the floor, and they're like, well, they're just doing that because they don't like the milk we gave them or something. And no, maybe there's a cause and effect to it. Maybe the child needs to be a part of the cleaning process of it for them to see, okay, if I spill this, it doesn't just disappear. So I have to be a part of like, what's the next step? Okay, you spilled it. Well, now you have to go get a towel and pick it up. And this is what happens when you do this, and that's the cause and effect. So it's a lot of active listening and being responsive to each child, getting to know your kids. That's very important. Sometimes we have the kids that are acting up, and those are the kids that we tend to give the most attention to because they're like the main characters of our classroom, and those are the ones that we tend to just be driven for. And but we also need to take care of the other kids and see their wants and their needs. Some kids are, and meet them there. For example, sometimes you have kids that are into superheroes. So therefore, you know about Iron Man and you say, Spider-Man's coming in, here's Peter Parker. Sometimes they're very active and you just say power down and they're like, okay, we know what that means. So really getting to know your kids. Teacher-child bonding, the educator with the child relationship. I mean, it's critical. We become like their second home. And it's tough. In the beginning of the year, it's very tough for them to have, they have a lot of separation anxiety. We see a lot of kids in the morning. We see a lot of parents also being tearful. So that bond is when we are really working in the beginning of the year. We want it to be positive. We want it to be a positive learning environment where children feel valued and understand. So in my classroom, we have a little welcome to the classroom. You can be kind, you can be a friend, you can be giving, you can be a helper. Together we can be anything. I don't have an open door policy in my center because of security reasons. So I like to have this out in the door just as a little welcome before they come into my environment, just as a little thing. I know it's very cookie cutter. I know it's like just bought off a store, but it's a little something just to like let them know what they're coming into, and a little reminder every day. The role of families in supporting educators. It's a partnership. It's tough. Some parents are really into, they want to be in your classroom, they want to be a part of it. Some other parents are just doing drop off, and sometimes they just see you as a help, and you need to explain to them that you're more and that you're able, that there's more to what you're doing. It's just not taking out blocks. They're learning a lot of other skills like hand-eye coordination, fine motor skills, and it's okay. Sometimes we need to take the time to explain it. Parental and engagement, family involvement has a direct impact in the way children learn. For example, I know I had a child that didn't really bond with me as a teacher, but once he saw his mom chatting with me and like bonding with me more, he was more into taking my direction. And he kind of said, like, if mom's chatting with her, I guess she's okay. And they can feel and they can see when parents are more hesitant to leaving them at school. That's why I always tell them, like, you guys have to be okay. Like, how are you guys? How are the parents doing? And be very asking them questions. Families are actively involved in their education. And I mean, it's going to be a long time commitment. Communication and collaboration. It's important to have an open line of communication between families and educators. How can educators make families feel more comfortable and engage with them? This can look differently for different centers, and it could look differently every year. I know for me, it depends on the kind of group that I have. Some families are more into chatting in the morning. Some families are into communic. We were doing a lot of communicating through devices, especially after COVID, which we kind of stopped now. We're trying to go more face to face, including our parent-teacher conferences. But how can you create this line of communication and what are they comfortable with? Like I said, some parents are more into just dropping off, and some parents are more into participating. Families as partners in learning. Families bring an important cultural, linguistic, and emotional knowledge about their children. I mean, who knows them best than they do? How can educators work with families to elevate this knowledge? It goes back to letting them know in the beginning of the year or just throughout the year, like the reason why we're doing this is because, or what they're learning. For example, the block example is a great one because I know a lot of parents, they walk into the classroom and they just see the toys and they're like, the same toys every day. Why don't they rotate them? And we don't really rotate them that much because we want them to know the routine. We want them to be comfortable within the environment. And as the time progresses, that's when we start transitioning the toys and changing the environment a little more. Where is the next slide? I'm going next. Okay. Oh, went too quick. Sorry for my technical difficulties. Okay. So how can you bring families in the classroom? So this is actually my classroom. We just celebrated Cinco de Mayo and Israeli independence. So that was the curriculum that I was following. So on the right, which would be your left, look what we made is the wall where usually I have art that the kid made. But for these two curriculums, they kind of go hand in hand because we do a traveling curriculum. So we did, I like to travel, and the parents were able to add in where the kids have been on vacation and where they've been, and they had like little tags and including California. And that's a great way to incorporate the families. The parents were really looking forward to that. And like when they would write in their name on the state that they've been in, they noticed like, oh, you've been there. Oh yeah, my grandparents live there. And it would continue the communication. Happy birthday. We have a happy birthday board for the kids. But this year we started integrating the parents. So we have the kids little greeting card and then we take a picture of the kids holding a sign saying happy birthday mom and been sending that home with them at the end of the day, and the parents have been really looking forward to that. So next year I hope to incorporate a little sign that parents can sign up for and at their birthdays and their grandparents' birthdays. And underneath we have photos of the families in the classroom. And in the beginning of the year, these are really good because the kids are sad and we're like, do you want to hold your picture? And they'll hold their picture. But as the year progressed, they actually stay up on the board and sometimes they'll like point out, oh, there's my sister. Oh, that's the day we went to Sonoma, which is great to have the families be a part of the classroom. Communicating with families. I mean, every center, and we're trying to get away from the devices. I know the Bright Wheel app, I actually deleted it from my personal phone, and it's been a game changer for me because I felt that I had to be really connected to the families even after hours, or if they sent a message, I felt like I needed to answer right away. And I needed to create my own personal boundary, just delete it because they also changed our policy at my center. So we can't have our actual cell phones with us. We need to have a tablet that we use only for the classroom. So that's really changed with the way that we communicate or have been also taking pictures for the end of the year. So a good way to communicate with families is by making them feel warm, friendly. Consistency is very important. Just like with the kids, having a routine is also having a routine with parents. It helps to create a trust by checking in every day, and that looks different for each family, and it also looks different for teachers depending on their schedule or what they stay or their hours. For example, I work the aftercare at my center, so I don't see the kids that say aftercare or the parents that do pickup at that time. So therefore, my co-teacher is the one that does that communication. Um, So just keeping parents updated. A lot of people use the Bright Wheel app. That seems to be really working in our industry. It was a great introduction. I mean, it was a game changer for child development. A quick conversation at pickup time and a drop off is great. And those are also tough because parents are coming in at different times and you're also managing a classroom. So therefore, that's also a lot of time management that needs to be juggled within the morning transition. Using different ways to communicate. I know in the past I have used newsletters, messages, um, and just try to get them. This year, what's been working for me is the calendar posted, and I have like in the bottom, calendar is subject to change. Just so parents know like what I'm kind of planning on doing within the curriculum, but also they need to understand that sometimes the day we saw a bug and that's what the day was about instead of doing what we had scheduled. Um, and it's important to just share these little snippets of their day for the parents to be able to also begin a conversation when pickup time is. I have the 2.5-year-olds, they're not very vocal, so parents usually just get like good or fine. That's how my day was. So in the morning, we use a little greeting way, just to build a connection between the children and the families and us. It's a little three-step approach. It feels natural, it feels meaningful. First, we greet the child at eye level. We use their name, and then we use the parents. We say grown-ups. That's the terminology we use. So we'll also greet the grown-up by name. So at the beginning of the year, we really have to learn the grown-ups and who does pick up and drop off, nannies and all that. So we greet the child, we greet the grown-up. Next, we do a little connection. So we mention like today we're gonna go play. Today we're gonna go play in blah blah level. Today we're gonna make Play-Doh. And then we ask the child something about their day at home. So, how was your day yesterday? Or if it's Friday, like how was your weekend? And finally, we share like a little review of what we're planning for the day and what we did the day before. So we'll say, oh, remember yesterday we did blue? Well, today we're going to hang up what we painted. Would you like to help me? And that also helps within the transition. And it gives parents a little window into their children's day and what they done. And it makes they're able to create like a little connection and a little conversation because they're able to ask, oh, teacher said that you painted blue. What are you guys using that for? And maybe the child is able to say, oh, it's going to be the blue for the board, for the flowers that we're going to use for Shabbat. Relationship with families and educators, um, a full overlook of it. Um, oh, so this is a great article that I found. So I realized within explaining to parents, we always need to have evidence of like why we're doing things and know that we're doing things because there's been research done and that what we're doing also works in other centers and that if we need to change something, there's resources for us to know and be able to readjust our teaching. So relationships with families have educators overlooked a critical piece of the puzzle. So this was a research done in Nebraska where educators research teachers are often they find it challenging to build strong partnerships with families since we're not really trained to do that when we are getting our degrees. The study was guided by the USA Department of Education, including Every Child Success Act and the National Teaching Standards. The researchers found that many teachers feel unprepared to work with families, often because relationship building is overlooked within our training, and their key overtake is simple but powerful. Strong partnerships begin by building meaningful relationships with parents, which we see. We see it in the reflection of the kids within the transitions. If they see the parents are comfortable and that they're within the environment, the kids are more comfortable with us. Researchers identify 6 strategies that worked, which are building trust first. Relationships with family should be built within trust. Educators need to create a welcoming, respectful environment where families feel valued and heard. And this could be done in a simple way in the beginning of the year. I know now parents are more interested in the teachers. Like now I know within the last 3 years, I've been getting little surveys the beginning of the year where the parents are asking me, like, what do you do? What are your hobbies? And asking me more about myself. Like, what is your educational level? What are you planning to do throughout the year? Is there a theme that you're looking forward to explore within the year? And that builds trust within them that they know that they're in capable hands. Um, Relationship building, partnerships don't just happen naturally. We do have to work on them. I know it's tough. They require ongoing supportive effects by the educators and consistent communication. They Making relationships is tough. I mean, I always joke that it's like dating or getting to know each other, and it is what it is. I mean, there's been relationships, there's been parents that I'm still close with years after. There's parents that like leave and they're like, thanks. And you can't take it personally, it just happens. And that's also with creating the relationship within your admin. You need to, like, I feel like you need to feel that you guys are working for the same goal. Therefore, your admin needs to be there to support you, and you need to take um a lot of pride what this is, because the center, it's not just the admin, it's also us, it's the teachers, it's the classroom. We're the ones that do the day and day. So, and I know that's tough. Sometimes admin and staff don't get along. I know in the past that has happened, but luckily now my admin's they're very there to support us. Cultural responsibilities. Educators must understand and respect families' cultures, background, values, and build authentic connections. This goes back to knowing our families. I mean, I know for us, sometimes they have dietary restrictions, so we need to know why. So for example, if I'm gonna do an activity that involves cooking, I need to remember that I don't only have allergies, but I also have cultural restrictions that I need to follow and need to be respectful of and find substitutes for sometimes. Um, it's a two-way communication. Communication should not only be one-sided of us just sending newsletters home and parents pretending to read them. It should be a back and forth asking families, like I know for us, I like to ask the parents like housework, how are you doing? Is there any way we can support you? Families should have opportunities to share their knowledge, concerns, and perspectives. Shared responsibilities and collaboration. Families and educators work together as partners, both contributing to children's learning and development. Reflective practices. Educators should reflect on their own beliefs, biases, and practices to improve how they embrace their families and strengthen the relationship. And I thought this was a great study made by them, and it goes hand in hand to the things that you hopefully by building a relationship with parents, you're able to create these connections. Um, and it's tough sometimes talking to parents. Um, like I say, a lot of people do the approach of the sandwich where they start with a compliment and the issue and then of how they're going to fix it. So it's good to start with the strengths, and starting with the strengths gives parents the ability to reduce shame. Sometimes shame is what is driven behind them, because when you're telling them their child is having a tough time or that there's something going within the classroom, sometimes they tend to have shame. So it's good to acknowledge it by saying, I noticed, or in these moments, this and this happens, and normalizing the curiosity of them, how it's okay to give them more support and sometimes you don't know all the answers. So that's when your friend comes in and they're able to support you. Frame it as a support and an access. So always peer connection or an independent, don't let them feel like they're out there by themselves. This is a peer connection, and we are a group. Invite partnership. Um, so by inviting them, you asking questions such as, what have you noticed at home? What helps when you do? Or is there any history of your child doing? And this just creates an opened communication gateway. Often opportunities, do a follow-up meeting and come in with some data, come in with your examples of I noticed in the classroom, and sometimes take the step and do look for the research and say, I have found other resources, or I have found that in other classrooms they use this method. Try targeting the classroom strategies over time. And there goes the relationships within your co-teachers. Um, you guys have to be on the same page because sometimes what happens is parents will ask one teacher something and then get the answer and then ask another and then kind of see the shift is not there. So your co-teacher is your die or they're your ride or die. Like they need to be in the same page and you need to be able to know that you're in the same teaching philosophy. And I know having your co-teacher sometimes has to do with admin. Sometimes we get assigned to co-teachers um, that come into your job setting trying to get a job are not really in the same philosophy as the center or your personal teaching philosophy. So therefore, in the beginning of the year, I know for us, we have um, staff development. And that's when I joke and say that the dating starts because that's when you get to learn about your co-teacher and ask questions like, what's your teaching philosophy? How do you feel about kids that need a little bit of extra help? What do you tend to do during those moments? And asking for examples of they have ever dealt with a challenging situation and how they solved it. And sometimes you learn a lot from them. And you're able to create a good environment where you're able to create problem solving and be flexible within the learning, engage within the communication. So I hope a little takeaway from my role in building connections is I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but truly at heart to remember we're in a classroom with children and it's a partnership and it takes more than just playing. I hope you leave with a few practices or maybe a new sense of renewal or purpose in your role within the classroom, and you take time to nurture respect and trust that you know what you're doing and that it's not a one-way communication, that it's a building and that it takes time and create a space where children and families feel safe and valued and understood. Thanks. So this is the citation for the article that I found for the research done in Nebraska. And thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?